What's up, Hokie Nation? And welcome into episode 28 of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. Spring ball continues here in Blacksburg. North Carolina fires Hubert Davis. Will Wade is off to LSU. And will Chandler Morris get a 7th year? All that and much more on a jam-packed episode of Talking with Teel, which starts right now. And we record on Thursday, March 26, 2026 from the Tech Solutions Studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. I'm your host, Carter Hill. To my left is our senior staff writer, Andy Bitter. Across the way is our managing editor, Mr. David Cunningham. Nick Brown, our director of media, is producing behind the scenes. And as always, we are joined by the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer, David Teel. Teel, how are you? Good to see you.
Shame it's such a slow news week, fellas.
I know, it is a shame. It is a shame. By the way, David, welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be back. And, oh, man, this coaching carousel is spinning. And, you know, given how long and excruciating the James Franklin coaching search was, the 2.5 months that went into that, I'm very glad I don't have a men's basketball coaching search to deal with this offseason. I feel very bad for my friends in the Triangle that have to cover this maybe for a 2nd year in a row, but it's great for news and it's great for podcast content.
It is great for podcast content.
You were speaking confidently about that before the calendars even turned to April. It's like you never know with these coaching things. They can pop up out of nowhere. They can
Don't
surprise
you
you
like that.
I'm just saying, like, you know, one year Oklahoma was like, writers are like, man, it's good to have Bob Stoops here. He's never going anywhere, and then he retires abruptly in the middle of the summer. It's like stuff comes out of nowhere sometimes. You will be surprised.
Tony Bennett.
Don't jinx it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
exactly. Tony Bennett, eve of the season.
We'll see. We'll see. Glad Austin was good. By the way, so Andy, we will start with you today because you were there on site in person earlier in the week. What's the latest on spring football for Virginia Tech?
They're still practicing.
Yeah, doing their thing.
They're still out there. Football practice is kind of football practice. People are always like, oh, what is it like? Is the tenor different? It's like most football practices are the same.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can differ them. And honestly, Brent Pry structured them a lot like James Franklin did. So you go out there and it looks kind of similar. There's, obviously a different person in charge of it. I'll say this about James Franklin. He loves the contact periods. Whenever there's like a big hit or something like that, he is the first one there to congratulate a guy. Jarikus Hairston had a big hit, and he ran across the field to go congratulate him on the block. Big news this week, A.J. Brand moving to receiver from quarterback. You figured that would solve itself somehow. I mean, they had 3 redshirt freshman quarterbacks after Bryce Baker came in as a transfer. Troy Hune comes in, is, the redshirt freshman and the true freshman all have 4 years of eligibility left. So it's sort of a log jam at the front end of the quarterback room, and something had to give. That either happens in the transfer portal or it happens by a position switch. They sort of headed it off right now by doing the position switch, and we'll see if A.J. Brandt can contribute, but he's a tremendous athlete, so I'm not going to discount his chances there.
By the way, how do you view Virginia Tech's offensive line right now? I don't know if I asked you that last week, but I feel like that's arguably the most crucial position for Virginia Tech heading into year 1 of the James Franklin era.
Yeah, work in progress. I don't think you come off last season at all and they're like, man, that was a finished product. I mean, how many sacks did they give up last year for the season? But, they have some returning pieces. They added stuff in the transfer portal. Some injured guys right now. Logan Howland not participating in the spring. Justin Terry, I think, is sort of in and out right now. I mean, some of the injured guys are out there taking mental reps, but I don't think they're getting the full complement of work. Brody Meadows was kind of off on the side, but then he was back in the main action there. I think the goal, as it is with every year, is just figure out what you have first and who's capable of playing where. And then you get to the summer, then you get to August, and you go, all right, let's put these guys into places permanently or more solidly than it was in the spring, and kind of get a rapport going, understand the communication that goes with everybody, and hope for the best once you get to the season. But, I look at last year. They could run block well. They could not pass block, and that's got to change this year, especially if you don't have a running quarterback back there.
By the way, Teel, you're coming up for the spring game, I assume, in a couple weeks, right? April 18th?
You assume correctly. Andy, I'm curious. Logan Howland seems like a big missing piece this spring. Just given, I mean, the guy was a part-time starter at Oklahoma, which I don't think you would discount if you're James Franklin and Matt Moore looking to put together your offensive line. What is his injury situation? Is it still the shoulder that I believe he had at Oklahoma?
I'm not sure exactly what it was. He's out for the spring, so he's not participating. Yeah. I can't remember if he's actually dressed though, because they will sometimes dress those guys and they'll be out there just, even if they're on the side. We saw Marcellus Hawkins like just behind the play. They would take a snap on install and he would just kind of go through the motions of going through the play. So I think that's some of it. But with these linemen, that is a physical spot, and if you're not in there mixing it up every day, I feel like you're missing something a bit in the spring. But I would imagine he would factor in the fall somewhere, and certainly. You look at some of the guys that they have in starting positions right now. Montavious Cunningham at right tackle. I believe it's Lucas Dawson at left tackle. I'm blanking on the exact order of what they had out there, but it's guys who have played before, but are maybe not solidified as definite starters when they're out there. So I think there's going to be some mixing and matching here before the season starts.
Sticking with football for just a minute, we got to get to Charlottesville real fast. And before I get your thoughts on this, Teel, so Chandler Morris is still seeking a 7th year of eligibility. We will find out if he gets it on April 1st. If you had one thing to say to Chandler Morris, Andy, if he asked you, should he get a 7th year, what would it be?
Get a job already. I've been saying this for a long time. I mean, I understand why these guys try to keep getting years of eligibility. At what point did we in college football just say, like, if you don't have perfect health and circumstances throughout your entire time in college, you just get to keep playing until you get the year of perfect health that you want? So I just don't understand why that's become the norm now. It's like, well, I missed a season because I was injured. And now he's making a mental health argument, which opens a whole new can of worms. I mean, if you win on that argument, how could they ever deny anybody ever again? Yeah. Because that everybody would just make that argument. Because how could you can't see a physical injury like a broken leg or something like that. How are you going to question or dispute somebody saying that mental health was an issue throughout the season? So I think it's a very interesting case coming up, and we'll see how they rule and if it sets a precedent for anything else. But if he wins on those merits, I feel like it could be open the door for a lot of players to continue to get eligibility.
What do you think, Teel, about this whole thing?
A lot of thoughts here, guys. Number one, as someone whose mother coped with mental health issues for much of her life, I would never discount anyone's claim of having those types of struggles. And Chandler Morris, even as far back last year at ACC Media Days, talked about having lost his love for the game and then rediscovering it at North Texas for the one full season he was there, and played the entire season and then came to UVA. And the basis of their contention is the 2022 year at TCU, where he took 20-some snaps over 4 or 5 games. But guys, Chandler Morris and his family aren't some rubes from the backwoods. This is a college football family. Chad Morris is a college football coach. They knew the rules. They knew that even those few snaps over those many games was going to cost him a year of eligibility. And if they were so concerned by that, they should have tapped out and said, no, we're not going to do kneel downs, and we're not going to, do this mop-up duty. In that regard, I think it's their own fault. And then I think there's a cautionary piece here, because Virginia fans will remember back in 2011, I think I have my years right, 2011 was Mike London's only winning season at UVA. He was the ACC Coach of the Year. They went to the Peach Bowl, and they had a bunch of guys coming back, including their quarterback, Michael Rocco. Then in the offseason, they go and take Philip Sims, a transfer from Alabama, from the 757 and Oscar Smith. We're all kind of scratching our heads going, why? You have your quarterback. What are you doing? And this could become a locker room issue. Well, guess what? It became a locker room issue. Sims was ill-suited for Virginia, both from a football and academic standpoint. Turned out to be a mess. The Cavaliers go 4-8. Guys, Virginia already has their quarterbacks for next year. They have Bo Prabula. They have Eli Holstein. You're going to tell me that they're going to add Chandler Morris to that mix if he somehow gets a favorable ruling from his hometown judge there in Charlottesville? Man, be careful what you wish for there. And there's money involved, and they're paying Prabula's starting salary. I mean, I think one of the interesting things that is two things that have come out of the court filings. Number one, Chandler Morris was making about 1.2 last year. That's $1.2 million. Kind of confirms what we know, what we thought the going rate for starting P4 quarterbacks was. And also the fact that Jim Phillips, the ACC commissioner, gave a deposition against Chandler Morris and in favor of the NCAA. And to all those UVA folks on Twitter who are banging on Jim Phillips for that, let me remind them that Greg Sankey did the same thing in the Charles Bediako case. And he filed an affidavit on behalf of the NCAA against Alabama, his primary brand in that conference, and Bediako.
What you got, David?
It's just the eligibility cases they've just become too complex and too complicated. Yeah, and I get the transfer portal. Like, it's become all about, you know, the comparison where, oh, well, a normal student could go to college for as long as they want. It's like, yeah, but you have to impose certain rules on how long you're allowed to play. And it used to be you had 5 years to play 4, and then became the COVID year, and you have medicals, and now you see people trying to get extra and extra and extra years. And it's a difficult situation because every single one of them is different, and you're seeing people, even Bediako, you know, take it to different local courts and say, hey, can I get a favorable ruling? Because if you poke one hole here, that might open another hole here. It's difficult because in reality, there should be somebody, one party, who would come down and say, this is how we're doing it. This is the eligibility. But the NCAA is not like that because the NCAA doesn't have control of the situation. So I look at this and go, good for Jim Phillips for kind of standing up, because and I don't mean to bemoan, you know, mental health either. Like, that's obviously a serious thing, especially in this country, especially with young people. But if you, to Teal's point, it seems more like one misstep in that year at TCU cost him a year of eligibility than anything. And it's like, should we really change the system because of that? We're not really are we really ruling on mental health? I think it's hard to tell. So it just complicated. And every single one of these situations is different, which does not help, because, you know, who's going to be the next player that says, you know, like Jalen Bedford's a guy we were talking about with Virginia Tech men's basketball. What if Jalen Bedford is like, oh man, like, I was at the JUCO level hurt my mental health, and, you know, I feel like I should get another year of eligibility. It's like the Diego Pavia stuff. They've just kind of opened a can of worms.
Well, I was going to say, so he put out something saying if he does get this year, he's going to be at Virginia next season. Do you guys believe that, with his dad being the offensive coordinator at Clemson? Like, any chance he's the starting quarterback at Clemson in 2026?
He doesn't believe it.
I don't think I mean, it is a messy situation. You know, Teel mentioned the previous situation with Rocco and Sims coming in. I mean, Morris would be the incumbent if they brought him back. So it's not like they'd be bringing in some foreign entity to come in and take over the job there. That said, that'd be so tough for for the coaches to handle there at UVA. It'd be like, well, we made these promises to Perbula. If I'm Perbula, I sue to get out of there. I'd be like, wait a second, no. This thing was closed and he was done and he was moving on, and now you're saying that I can't even play here? Like, I've already committed to this situation, that, I picked this school, I would imagine in large part because of playing time. So I don't know how they handle it. I don't know if I necessarily believe that 100% he goes back to UVA if he gets this ruling.
Guys, I thought it was telling that when Greg Medea, our friend from the Daily Progress in Charlottesville, asked Tony Elliott point blank about the Morris case the other day, and Elliott's response was, I think I texted it to the group. I mean, it was word salad. It was indecipherable. He couldn't explain how he would handle it, or if Morris would definitely be back with Virginia. To me, it further confused me than enlightened.
The quote was, "We'll make a determination once we find out what's going on there." I think those guys knew that this was a possibility coming in the door, but really the focus has been on the guys that are here right now. And I think Chandler respects that. Him and his dad understand that all parties got investment in all areas, so to speak. So we'll see how that goes with him next week. And just I'm trying not to, it's a difficult situation. And so I'm just trying to be present where my feet are. And then we'll know where when the situation arises, we'll know which direction to go once we get there. To me, that sounds like a head coach that is, he wants to support his former quarterback as much as possible, but he's like, we've got our next guy, and he's in a rock and a hard place because, I mean, what Teel just talked about with like locker room vibes. I mean, you've got 3 quality quarterbacks. That is not really a situation you want to be in, and there's no post spring portal window.
Right, and he had mentioned it a little bit, but you've allocated money to Perbula and Holstein to be on the roster. So where does the money come from now to pay Chandler Morris? And are you going to allocate that amount of money to 3 different quarterbacks on your roster? Like, it creates a whole confusing situation.
Here's guessing they could find money for the guy that led them to the best record in the ACC last year. And that doesn't seem like a hard sell with the boosters to be like, pony up here, we'll get this guy. I mean, I think Tony Elliott's statement is speaks to the fact that he doesn't know how he'd handle it, and it feels like an impossible situation to navigate. And can we retire the phrase "be where my feet are"? I think Fontel Mine says that one a lot. It's like, it doesn't really say anything. Let's retire that phrase. But I don't know how you'd handle that as a coach. If you're like, well, we're moving on from this guy, we bring in 2 new guys. They're the ones getting reps right now in spring practice, and you're preparing for the season, and then to turn around, and it feels like it complicates things that don't need to be complicated. Perhaps, I don't know if he's rooting against him in the court, but it would simplify things for him.
I love Teel's smirk is hilarious.
It would certainly simplify things for him.
Yeah.
If the ruling went against Chandler Morris.
All right. Well, it's a basketball. Lot to get to here.
We
Where do you guys want to start, actually? So I got NC State and Carolina. Do you guys want to start with Hubert Davis or Will Wade? I think Carolina is the bigger story, but Will Wade left literally this morning. So where do you want to start, Teel? Where do you want to start first off?
Oh, I think we start with the news of the day.
Okay. So we joked about it a couple weeks ago. Will Wade, one of the more polarizing figures in all of college basketball, takes over as the savior for NC State basketball. He's there for 1 year. They are picked to finish in the top 4 of the ACC. They barely get in the NCAA tournament. They consider it a failure of a year, even though they got to the big dance. And after 1 year, less than 5 years after being fired by the same school that is rehiring him for being involved in an FBI wiretap investigation, he's going back to LSU to be the next head basketball coach of the Tigers. Probably is going to be, in my opinion, maybe one of the messier divorces in the history of college basketball. How do you digest what's happened with Will Wade, NC State, and LSU over the last couple of days?
Whew. This is a 30 for 30 waiting to happen, Carter. This is what happens, as it did at North Carolina with Bill Belichick. This is what happens when the donors and other folks at an institution hijack a coaching search from the athletic director and the people who know what the hell they are doing. Boo Corrigan did not want Will Wade. I can assure you of that. It is fact. He will probably say otherwise until his grave, but that is not indeed how this went down. And actually, Boo Corrigan's preferred candidate was his longtime, I don't know if friend is right, but his longtime acquaintance, Ryan Odom. And Ryan basically had his choice of NC State and UVA and chose UVA. That's where his heart is, and that's understandable. So Boo Corrigan is dragged kicking and screaming into the Will Wade era. And Will Wade comes sauntering in. It's going to be a reckoning, he told us, for the ACC and the Triangle, because NC State is back, and we're going to do that. And as anyone who's been around Will Wade knows, he's full of bluster. And it turned out that his bluster this time was indeed that. And at the first possible opportunity, he's back out the door to LSU, where, truth be told, they deserve each other. I mean, they do. I mean, the governor there has been, it's almost as if he's been plotting this all along. Who does the governor hire as the new president of the LSU system? He brings in the guy from McNeese, who, happened to hire Will Wade off the FBI scrap heap. And then now, who is LSU hiring as an associate AD? The AD from McNeese, who hired Will Wade. I mean, you cannot make this up. And if I'm Boo Corrigan at NC State, if I'm a Wolfpack fan, it's don't let the door hit you in the ass. Good riddance.
That's a great
So what
way
do you
to put
think,
it.
David?
That's a great way to put it. And it's funny. Now we've got Lane Kiffin, Kim Mulkey,
Yep.
and Will Wade at the same school. And I don't know that Wade is quite like them to that level. But I don't know that there are many personalities in men's college basketball that are quite to those levels. But Will Wade is about as interesting as it gets. Again, I feel bad for the NC State reporters, my friend Noah Fleischman, who I've texted with, and just having to cover this again. 366 days his tenure lasted. Noah said that's the second shortest in NC State history, only behind Pete Maravich.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Who went back to LSU.
Yes.
I'm not surprised. I feel like the Will Wade saga was always going to be short. I don't know that anybody expected it to be this short, but it's so funny that on the night that Hubert Davis and North Carolina part ways, that sent ripple effects through the college basketball world, that the story that nobody can get enough of is Will Wade and NC State, that, it looks like he's going to leave. 2 days later, he's leaving. And the NC State fans, I think, have a right to be upset. But also, this is also kind of what you sign up for when you get a coach in Will Wade. I don't want to go at Virginia Tech fans, but like if James Franklin was to have one or two really good seasons and then leave, it's kind of what you sign up for when you got a coach of a big magnitude who's been around a lot of places. But Will Wade's personality, you could kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit for a long time.
This all happened too while LSU still had their current head coach too.
Correct.
By the way, there's that side of things too. They
McMahon,
fired back McMahon this morning.
Did they officially fire him?
Reportedly fired him. He's going to have to go at some point. But yeah, reportedly fired him this morning. He was still employed throughout this whole process. I mean, Will Wade was asked about it at the ACC tournament 2 weeks ago. That was 2 weeks ago.
I feel at a certain point fans need to stop falling for this with any coach. Like, there is no dream job. There is no, this is I will never leave this place. They say what they have to when they're at a spot. And this is all coaches. There's always a better opportunity out there. What was a South Florida coach was like threatening to beat up other coaches if they came and poached his players, and then after the season's done, he takes off for another job.
Providence.
Yeah. So it's like, quit acting like these coaches are so loyal to the position. They are upward climbers like everybody else. So this is why I think it's so disingenuous when players rip on, or the coaches rip on the players, like, oh, they're just looking for the most money and the best opportunities. Like, we all are in all walks of life. You wouldn't criticize other people for taking a better opportunity or a job situation. So quit believing these coaches when they say this is the perfect situation, this is where I want to be, I've never thought of being anywhere else, this is a perfect dream job opportunity. No, there's always another job out there, and there's always more money. And quite frankly, I don't know what is so great about LSU that is so much better than NC State.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
I think
the
they're
thing
just,
too, yeah.
they're just going to give them a lot of money.
Like, they're going to fund the roster better.
It's not like NC State didn't fund their roster well this past year.
I mean, I think you're NC State, you're always little brother to UNC and Duke, and you don't necessarily have that at LSU. But historical success, I think NC State has more of it than LSU basketball.
Yes,
doesn't it?
no, 100%.
Well, at NC State, there are expectations for basketball, very high aspirations and expectations. At LSU, you win 20 games a year, you get to the occasional NCAA tournament. Pretty much everybody's going to be happy as long as Lane Kiffin's rolling along in football. And heck, I'm not sure that baseball isn't more important at LSU
it probably
than men's basketball. So I think there's less pressure on Will Wade at LSU. There's probably more comfort in that he's working with people he's accustomed to working with, and he knows they'll basically give him a blank check and carte blanche and let him be Will Wade, where perhaps at NC State there was maybe some constraints. So, again, good riddance, and NC State can move on.
I do find it funny that John Rothstein has taglines for everyone, and his tagline for Will Wade is American Gangster. It's like, I don't think he looks like he's fleeing a crime scene. With
he literally already has.
Well, he's going back, to the scene of the crime. I wonder if the pressure of being the little brother to Duke and Carolina just got too much. Kind of what Teel was just saying. And also, when you look around the ACC, of the new hires, Will Wade was probably third. He had the third best season behind Ryan Odom, Jay Lucas, whichever 1A, 1B, and then just ahead of Luke Laux. But the Florida State team played better at the end of the season than NC State did. NC State was the worst of those four teams at the end of the season. And I just wonder if he looked around and said, this is not going the way I thought. And I know those people, and I know how they will treat me. And I know that the people there will give me a blank check. And the pressure built up, because the bottom line is NC State fans are not going to be happy if you do not beat Duke and Carolina. Those are the expectations. NC State fans were not really happy the fact that they just made the NCAA tournament this year. And I don't know that he could handle those expectations, to be quite honest with you.
But did you guys see the Joe Ovius podcast clip the other day? The tough neighborhood thing that he dropped out there. So
they've been killed. I've seen all their stuff on social on Twitter last day or so, and they've been killing it with. I mean, they know the triangle better than anyone.
This is a content blessing.
Oh, absolutely.
This is dropped from heaven right in their laps. My goodness.
Is this going to be another Lane Kiffin run him off the road situation as he departs for Baton Rouge today? There's a plane coming in to pick him up at like 1:30 this afternoon. Teel. Like, is it going to be that bad, do you think, from NC State's fan base? Do you think, like, not actually, but like, do you think this is going to be that toxic of a situation on their side of things? Do you think?
I think, guys, we definitely have to have NC State versus LSU in the ACC SEC challenge next year. And we have to play it in Raleigh.
I think the big winner of this whole thing is Dave Doran.
I saw
like,
the
Dude,
yeah.
Boring Dave Doran. This is what
Yeah.
what was the post? It's like
I got it. Here,
you're going to get some average to above average football, and
the Twitter account is called Quadir Copeland's Burner. No controversy, no rumors, just some damn average to slightly above average football.
There you go.
I mean, he had his own flirtations with another school,
Yeah.
with Tennessee when that whole thing came open that one time. So, again, coaches are going to look out for themselves and find these things. So quit buying the lines at the press conference where this is the greatest place ever and I love it here.
From an NC State perspective, I'm not sure that they won't be better off.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, who's the replacement coach?
yeah, well,
Is it going to be somebody good? Is it going to be
I think the
Cindy Lowe
the
again?
name the name that seems to be at the top of some of these lists is Josh Schertz from St. Louis.
Yeah.
And he's been a very good coach. Obviously, Ryan Odom is not available, but I think NC State, you can get a guy that you think you believe is going to actually want to stick around and is not just using it as a stepping stone. But but I guess if that's always the way it's going to be, then I don't know.
Is the ink dry on Phil Martelli Jr.'s contract at VCU? Is
That could be an interesting one.
and
too,
even if it
yeah.
is, I can't imagine there's any sort of prohibitive buyout that would prevent him from going somewhere. That'd be tough to turn around like a week after signing the extension. Be like,
Yeah.
this is where I want to be, and then leaving for somewhere else. But
Didn't Church just sign an extension in St. Louis?
He did.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Do,
I wonder about.
they can buy these guys out of anything.
Yeah, I think they're, and I think Schertz is an absolutely bona fide candidate or potential candidate and qualified. But there are some others out there. We mentioned Jay Larranaga for the Boston College job. Apparently, that's not going to happen. But I think the Larranagas and the Corrigans know one another. Larranaga would be similar to a Luke Laux type of hire, and that he'd bring those NBA analytics to the college game. Travis Steele, the Miami of Ohio coach. If NC State wanted to go to the family, Justin Gainey has done very well as a high-level assistant at Tennessee, now on Rick Barnes' staff there. Also was with Shaka at Marquette and previously at Arizona, and did some operations work at NC State, his alma mater, where he played for 4 seasons. So those are just a couple other names to throw out there. Maybe even Eric Olin at New Mexico. This was his first season there. He did a really good job at UC San Diego, transitioning that program from Division II, where it was wildly successful, under him to the Division I level. So those are just some other names. I know some folks who are very close to Boo Corrigan, and so those names are legit.
Can I throw one more name your way, too, just to get a feel for it? I will say his buyout is $5 million, so there's that side of things. How about Chris Beard at Ole Miss? Would he fit NC State? Like, do you see a marriage there in the slightest? Especially, the Will Wade thing, they went down the route. What's that? Don't marry? Well, yeah. They went down the Will Wade route, and now, Chris Beard's a little bit similar. He's got a little bit of a different background, obviously, but did obviously get into some hot water, and now he's back at Ole Miss, and they had a tough season this past year, got going in the SEC tournament, but has won pretty much everywhere he's been, and NC State's much more of a basketball school than Ole Miss is.
Yeah. I wonder, Carter, if you want to wade back into those. Oh, I didn't really mean that. That's fine, but why not?
That was good.
If you want to go back into those waters. Here's another name, and why can't it's an? What about the crazy man at High Point?
Oh, yeah. He stares into your soul. Yeah. What's his name again? He was the first-year head coach, because their former head coach is now at Creighton, obviously.
Brett Reed?
Brett Reed?
No,
Alan Huss is the one who left High Point.
Flynn Clayman, that's who it
I
is.
clicked on the wrong one. Yeah, Flynn Clayman, 31-5 this year.
Yeah.
He's another one who made like the really viral speech about nobody's playing us mid majors and you got to do this. And watch if he takes a major conference job. Watch how he'll block out the mid majors on the schedule.
Oh, sure.
It's all about the situation that you're in. That's what you're defending.
Well, and I mean, the former High Point coach, Alan Huss, he went to Creighton to be the head coach in waiting, and McDermott retired, and now he's the head coach at Creighton. But I mean, it's North Carolina, man. There are a lot of good coaches. And not just for NC State, but also for North Carolina.
You want to segue to the Tar Heels now? Is that good? Anything else on the Wolfpack, Teel?
No, the Tar Heels be fine. Plenty there, too.
All right, I've been told we're going to get a break. So stick right here. We'll be back in 60 seconds. Break down Hubert Davis out of Carolina. And where do the Tar Heels turn from here? Coming up next, as we roll on episode 28 of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. Switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights. We switch TV channels. Some of us switch partners while square dancing. Well, that's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, a group of State Farm agents that support TechSideline.com can switch you over to State Farm so you can start saving today. These State Farm agents and their team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. Check out TechSideline for the agent in your area. It's easy to switch and save. Just give them a call. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. And welcome back to this edition of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. We stay in the Triangle area. Arguably, the NCAA tournament is still going on, but arguably the biggest story in college basketball right now is North Carolina moving on from one of its own in Hubert Davis. For the first time in probably 3/4 of a century, the Tar Heels are likely going to have to go outside the family to find their new head basketball coach. Surprising the slightest, Teel, that the Tar Heels moved on from Hubert Davis. I think obviously the results on paper were good there, but you got national championship expectations in Chapel Hill, and those clearly were not being met.
No, Carter, as we've often mentioned, it's not that you lose sometimes, it's how you lose. And my goodness, North Carolina could not have lost in a worse way than it did against VCU. And look, yes, Caleb Wilson missed the final 9 games of the season. We all get that. But you're up 19 points with 14 minutes to go in an NCAA tournament game. You need to close it. And they couldn't, and they looked inept in not doing it. They looked poorly coached. They looked poorly prepared. There were fundamental breakdowns on both ends of the court. And then Hubert didn't help himself post-game by really not holding himself accountable in any way. And it was, like all these things, it was an accumulation. It wasn't just VCU. You go back to his first season, and the end of it was almost picture perfect. He beats Krzyzewski in his final home game at Cameron. He ends Krzyzewski's career at the Final Four in the ultimate Duke-Carolina clash. But let's not forget, Carolina was an 8 seed that season. They lost games by 20 and 30 points. They lost to Pittsburgh at home, a Pitt team that was like 190th in KenPom. There were some head-scratching results. And then the next season, they become the first team ever to be number 1 in the preseason AP poll and fail to make the NCAA tournament. And then, yes, there was a number 1 seed in 2024. He's the ACC Coach of the Year. But he lost in the ACC tournament final to NC State, a 10 seed, playing his 5th game in as many days. And then he lost in the Sweet 16. And then last year they were gifted an NCAA bid. And now this year they become the first Carolina team since 1970 to close the season with 3 consecutive losses. So as painful as this is for North Carolina, and trust me, it is very painful. This is not Matt Doherty, who went scorched earth when he got the job and turned everybody off. Hubert Davis is beloved there. He is a Tar Heel through and through, and no one loves that institution more than he does. Maybe did. is the proper verb tense. But it was time. As unfortunate and sad as it is, it was time.
I think North Carolina fans probably look at the school 10 miles away and they're like, well, Duke is doing this under their new coach, and they're the number one seed in the tournament, and up there in the ACC standings, and why can't we have that with our successor to the Hall of Fame coach that retires like that? I think that certainly plays into it. Is you're always looking at what your neighbor is doing, and in that case, it's a neighbor you dislike quite a bit in college basketball. You're going to want the same kind of thing, and that put a lot of pressure on Hubert because Shire has been so good out of the gate there.
Well, Andy, you make a great point, and I think part of John Shire's brilliance really in succeeding Mike Krzyzewski is he resisted the mistake that Hubert Davis made. Look at Hubert Davis's staff at North Carolina. He just surrounded himself with Tar Heels. Pat Sullivan, Sean May, Marcus Page, Brad Frederick, all of them, Jeff Lebo, all of them Tar Heels. Even when he was forced to hire a general manager, who did they hire? Jim Tanner, a Tar Heel. What did John Shire do when he took over for Mike Krzyzewski? He hired folks like Jay Lucas, who had no ties to Duke. For his general manager, he brought in Rachel Baker from Nike. Again, no ties to Duke. He brought in fresh ideas, fresh eyes, fresh perspective. And Hubert Davis never did that. And Coach K and Roy Williams could get away with that because they were established. They were credentialed. Hubert Davis and John Shire were not. And Davis should have followed Shire's lead, but he didn't.
Yeah, I just felt like in the Hubert Davis tenure, he was such a great guy, but the expectations are just so high, and you have to produce. And they consistently fell short of expectations. 4 NCAA tournaments, but 2 first-round exits, back-to-back years. And like you look at their Ken Palm adjusted offense and defense, like they were a top 20 offensive team twice in the team that went to the national championship game his first season, and then 2 years later, the team that was a number 1 seed, as Teel said. And they were once a top 20 adjusted defensive team, that same 2023-4 team. Outside of that, they never really got the defense figured out. And the difficult part to me is that if Caleb Wilson doesn't get hurt, there's a very good chance that Hubert's still there, because Caleb Wilson completely changes the trajectory of that team. They're probably not a 6 seed, so they don't play VCU in the 6-11 game. Maybe they still lose in the first round, but Caleb Wilson is one of the best players in the country for a reason. But to Teal's point, I think this was kind of needed to happen. If you're Carolina, just because Duke, I think, has continued to elevate, and Carolina has slowly teetered off. Not enough, but the Carolina expectation is not to have a first-round exit back-to-back years. The Carolina expectation is to go to the Final Four.
Right.
If they had Wilson, they could have been a 5 seed. Then they could have lost a high point instead of Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. This is Carolina basketball. So with that being said, Teel, like, this is the bluest of blue bloods, really. I mean, I look at Carolina, Duke, Kentucky, Kansas. Obviously, Kentucky opened up 2 years ago, but jobs like this just do not open, really, ever, it seems like. Carolina hasn't gone up. Except for this year.
Bill Self might step down here.
And we'll get to that, yeah. The thing with Carolina, though, again, they haven't gone outside the family since, the 50s? So this is just, this never opens up to the entirety of college basketball. Kind of a once in a, at this point, lifetime thing when you look at the Tar Heels situation. So where does Carolina turn? That's my big question. Where does Carolina turn? And really, to kind of piggyback off of that question, in your opinion, where does the Carolina basketball job rank amongst college basketball jobs across the country?
Carter, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a job that would be more coveted, perhaps other than Duke. Carolina, I mean, they got 6 banners up there. just everything from Jordan to Coach Smith and Coach Williams. And it is through Bill Belichick notwithstanding, this is a basketball school. But I think Belichick plays into this and the search. We talked about some of the dysfunction at NC State. Guys, Carolina embodies dysfunction right now. And it's Belichick and his cronies over in football. They don't know what they want to do with their new basketball arena. And they thought they were going to just kind of, without anybody really noticing why they thought this, heaven only knows, that they were going to get this Carolina North arena project passed without any objections from the old guard. But then the old guard said, not so much. And then Roy got involved and Tyler Hansbrough and a lot of folks. And now are we going to rebuild the Dean Dome where it is now? Are we going to renovate the Dean Dome? Are we still going to, or maybe just go off campus to Carolina North? And you've got all this dysfunction, literally civil war there, and now a coaching search on top of it. Is this still a top shelf job? Absolutely. But I just wonder if for some candidates, these might be red flags and just diminish it enough that they might say, no thanks.
Yeah, I look at some of the whole. I mean, when Virginia Tech played there in late February, there were people talking about it, and I've only been there a handful of times, but I understand how much that place means to North Carolina basketball. But it's just so interesting that to me, it felt like that was a bigger topic of conversation at times this year than the actual team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, oh, hey, the team, just, I mean, outside of beating Duke, obviously, they lost their final 3 games of the year, but I was thinking of the NC State game. Of course they didn't have Caleb Wilson, but I felt like at times down the stretch, it was like, oh, Carolina's worried more about its new arena than what it's doing with that than the actual roster. I'm interested to see. Steve Newmark is I don't know if you know him at all, Teel. I know he's got a NASCAR background, but he's going to be the new AD. And this transition with Bubba Cunningham, you're transitioning right around a new coaching search. How does who the AD is going to be play into who the next coach is going to be? Like it just seems like a very complicated situation.
I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, UNC basketball, I think I'd put that at the top echelon of college basketball. I mean, you can talk about arena. I mean, Duke plays in a high school arena. Like it's a venerable high school. Like, they've done it up and stuff like that. But you see that place when it's empty and you're like, this is it? This is the place? So I would worry less about the stadium. I think any coach goes, they've won national championships there, not in the distant past either. They've done it with multiple head coaches, and it feels like if you know what you're doing, there's a commitment there, NIL wise, like arena, whatever. Am I going to get the money for the roster? And I think North Carolina will do that. And I think any high profile coach in the country should jump over everybody else to try to get this job. I think it's that good of a job that's come open.
So who do you think's the next head basketball coach in North Carolina? I'm gonna put you on the spot right now. Like they're again, it's Carolina basketball. You could call, other than John Shire and Bill Self, theoretically they could call pretty much anybody who they want in the country. Doesn't mean that, again, with some potential concerns, if you're at a school like Michigan or Arizona, that you're going to say yes. But theoretically, they could call pretty much anybody they wanted to in the country. So who is Carolina's next head basketball coach?
Are we all going to call our shot here on who it's going to be?
Do you want to do buy or sell for it? Actually, that may be better. Okay. All right. Just throw out names then. Just throw out names. What do you think, Teel?
I would say if you force me to pick one, I would say Tommy Lloyd.
Okay.
From Arizona. And now there are all kinds of complicating factors with everyone. If Arizona goes and wins the national championship, does that, just tug him back to Tucson? I don't know. I don't know Tommy Lloyd. I have met Steve Newmark. David, you asked. Newmark is a William and Mary grad. He's a Chapel Hill native, but went on to William and Mary. I asked him once, why does a Chapel Hill native and Carolina fan go to William and Mary? He said, I had enough of Franklin Street during my high school days. So I appreciated his honesty of his high school revelry. But it will be interesting. As you mentioned, he's a NASCAR executive. He's a businessman, is what he is, with no real ties and experience in intercollegiate athletics. And obviously he will have a strong voice in this hire. So I think we have to take that into consideration. But the job that Tommy Lloyd has done, and he obviously has embraced the new age of athlete compensation and the portal. He's excellent in international recruiting. And he's also a Mark Few protege. And one of Roy Williams' best friends in coaching is Mark Few. So you've got that connection as well.
I think it's going to be Billy Donovan.
Okay.
I think
great call.
I look at his NBA career. It's run its course. And like his mentor, Rick Pitino, he's not an NBA guy. Like, you had a lot more success in the college game. He's 61 years old, I think it is. So
he'll be 61 in May.
Okay, so 61 coming up, which I think would be more of a big deal if I don't see Pitino at age 73, guiding his team to the Sweet 16 and continuing on. Billy Donovan was one of the great college coaches ever. I mean, back-to-back titles at Florida, multiple teams in the Final Four, not just those teams that he had there. I wonder if at age 61 he's looking at sort of like what his legacy is as a college basketball coach or as a coach in general. And like, am I just going to be viewed as this guy who went to the NBA and didn't really succeed in anything? I mean, the Bulls are a lost cause. Like, even if he doesn't go to Carolina, I don't know if he's back with the Bulls next year. Because what have they built there? They've missed the playoffs 4 consecutive years. Does he want to be considered this mediocre NBA coach, or could he go back and do something special at a place like Carolina? I'd almost look at it, maybe flipping sports, like Nick Saban. Mm-hmm. Nick Saban, great college coach, did not have NFL success. That was brief, and when he was in the NFL, so it was a little bit more of a hotter candidate there. But I think Donovan would be an excellent choice. And if you're going to go outside the family and try to find somebody that's got professional experience, because they have to deal with a salary cap and player salaries, essentially, he might be a smart choice with this whole thing.
Well, and I think his background, he's won national championships. I mean, it's crazy looking at his resume, because he went to three consecutive Elite Eights and a Final Four before his final season. Like, of his final 5 in the college game, 2010-11 through 2014-15, you're talking 4. He made it to the Elite Eight 4 times, and he's won 2 national championships. I think he's can't miss it a little bit if you're Carolina, especially with his background.
I mean, the game's changed.
It has.
From when he was last in college, so I think that would be the concern with him. But
yeah,
it's not like he's not been dealing with player compensation, dealing with athletes in the NBA, and you're dealing with a lot of salary stuff. So he hasn't shut down the idea. I think he was asked about it, and he didn't say like, no, I'm absolutely never going back to college. Mm-hmm. So if this opportunity is there, I think it could be interesting. Yeah,
I'd be curious to see how he would structure like his front office kind of thing. And I mean, Tommy Lloyd has been terrific at Arizona. I'll be a little bit different. I think TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State is very intriguing. And I mean, I've gotten the chance to, I think I spoke with him once when Virginia Tech and Iowa State played. I'm trying to remember how long ago that was.
Oh, it was that
was in the 23-24 season when
Brooklyn, right?
No, the Hokies beat them in Orlando.
Right. Yeah.
And that was a really good. That was an Iowa State team that went to the Sweet 16, and Nick says he's jacked.
He is.
He has been terrific at Iowa State. 2 Sweet 16s. They're in the Sweet 16 again, so that's 3 of his 5 seasons. They made the NCAA tournament all 5 years. He was at UNLV and South Dakota State before that. But the interesting thing, I think, is the dynamic is Iowa State athletics. Like, how sustainable is that really? And Matt Campbell just left. And you have what you want to compete at this level every single year. Iowa State is 5th in adjusted defensive efficiency this year and 17th in adjusted offense. Ken Palm has them as the number 7 team in the country. They are 29-7. I think the tough part here is that it's like, I guess all these guys are a risk, but like with a guy like Lloyd or Otzelberger, it's like these guys have never won a national championship. That's ultimately what you want to get to. But is he really going to win with Iowa State? I'm not so sure that the resources are there. And I think he's a guy I look at and I go, man, if he was looking for a different place to go, like a bigger job, like this is a crown jewel job in the sport. Like he's had plenty of success there.
He said he's staying though. He put a statement out.
Yeah. Tommy Lloyd at Arizona's answer was not very convincing, but Otzelberger at Iowa State.
Hey, we just saw Will Wade. We saw Will Wade say to the media that he's like, is the LSU job open? And it wasn't.
He was prepared for that question.
There's no questions about it. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing else to answer. That's the truth.
I love coaching the Cyclones.
Jamie Pollard excited for Cyclone Nation that TJ is not going anywhere. He will be a basketball coach for a long time. These feel like quotes that will be thrown back at everybody's face. To go for another place. Like I said, don't believe coaches when they say this stuff.
You know who would be an interesting sleeper candidate is Mark Byington.
Yeah, Mark Byington, Dusty May at Michigan, Todd Golden at Florida, Nate Oates at Alabama. Those are guys that have been mentioned too.
Is Byington a big enough name for Carolina though?
Good basketball.
Like, if you're going outside the family for the first time, I feel like you gotta, get a headliner to come in. And I'm not saying he's not a good coach. I mean, he's done a great job at Vanderbilt and getting that program where it is right now, but you're North Carolina. I feel like you need a premier marquee name to come in there.
What say you two?
Oh, could Byington do the job? Absolutely. And he was terrific at James Madison. Heck, he was good at Georgia Southern. He's a ball coach now, and he gets it, and he's aggressive. The Donovan thing is fascinating, and Andy could well be right. I would have 2 questions. One would be timing because of the length. Does he leave the Bulls in the middle of the season? Because I don't think the NBA season ends till late April, early May, and clearly Carolina could not wait that long for its new coach. And then, yes, he's accustomed to dealing with player compensation. But what he's not accustomed to dealing with is annual free agency for every player. And is that a headache that he probably could handle it if he was so inclined? Is he so inclined? I don't know. And
the Bulls the Bulls are 29-43 right now, and they are 9 spots out of the 10th place in the Eastern Conference, which is the last playing game. So I feel confident in saying that if Billy Donovan wanted to leave the Bulls early, wouldn't be too much of a hurdle. I think the Bulls might be like, okay, head on out, Billy. I think we'll move forward from here.
Yeah, Dusty May is interesting to me at Michigan. He's one of those guys that, like Tommy Lloyd, where if the athletic administration is not as aligned as people make it out to be, why would he leave Michigan? But it is still Carolina basketball. I don't know if they're going to go, like, these guys have a little bit of a shady background, and it is North Carolina. Like, I do think Todd Golden's a great coach. I don't know if they go that route. Nate Oates, I don't know if you want to say shady background, but there have been some things that have taken place at Alabama that obviously are not going to go over well at Carolina. So
questionable character decisions in some of these players. Nate Oates and Todd Golden. And Dusty May seems disliked within the Big Ten circles. Like, other coaches seem to dislike him, and I don't quite. I'm not informed enough of why that is. Teel, do you have any background of why he seems to be not liked very much in the Big Ten?
besides the fact that he kicks their butts, that's probably a big part of it. And, Carter, you mentioned alignment of administration and such, and we've been talking about dysfunctional institutions and athletic departments. Hello, Michigan. I mean, come on now. From Sharon Moore and his Ward Manuel on his way out as AD, they have a new president there in Kent Severud coming from Syracuse. How does Dusty May view all that? I mean, we're talking about a guy who took Florida Atlantic to the Final Four, guys, and now has Michigan as a number one seed there in Chicago and the odds-on favorite to come out of there. That guy, if Carolina could somehow land him, that is a home run.
I have an interesting question to pose. You mentioned the Bulls. If Billy Donovan were to leave, would Chicago native John Shire be interested in the Bulls job?
Why would you leave the best job in college basketball?
I don't think I wouldn't. I'm just opening the discussion.
Can you imagine if Billy Donovan left to go to North Carolina and they turned around and hired John Shire? The people in Chapel Hill would be they'd be to their knees. That's so funny. But
I'm more just curious. I mean, I think Duke is probably the best basketball job, college basketball job.
Could
in the
Shire
country.
look Coach K in the eye after he shepherded this transition as his handpicked successor, and it's like, thanks for setting me up with all this, but I'm going to leave after how many years? 4 years, however long he's been there.
Yeah, 5
for a terrible NBA job, which I don't know. I couldn't see it, but again, I can't get into these guys' minds.
It's fun to think.
No, too soon, I would think. But hey, Coach K flirted with the Lakers. Danny Hurley flirted with the Lakers. The Bulls right now clearly are not the Lakers.
The trickle-down effect in college basketball is going to be insane, too, because North Carolina is going to hire, unless it's Billy Donovan, North Carolina is going to hire a big-time college head coach. There's a trickle-down effect. Yep. NC State is now open. Could Kansas open with Bill Self? I mean, we just had a once-in-a-lifetime college football coaching carousel. Can we have that on the basketball side of things, too? That's going to be an interesting question. Syracuse is already open. Cincinnati's already open. Those guys have all been filled. Providence has been open. So it is going to be an interesting coaching carousel for sure.
Well, and I think you mentioned Dusty May. Mm-hmm. Like if the Michigan job comes open, Michigan's coming off at least a Sweet 16. Second best team in the country, undoubtedly behind Duke. Maybe 1A, 1B this year. Who would Michigan go get? Like it's a good thing the portal does not open until after the national championship game, because this is going to be a chaotic coaching carousel and lead to what I think would be an even more chaotic portal season, because the players are going to be going everywhere.
No doubt. No doubt. By the way, speaking of Syracuse too, real fast, what do you think about the Orange hiring Jerry McNamara at Teel?
I don't love it. Just because you just came off Red Autry and you're staying in the family, and yes, 2 years at Siena and darn near beat Duke, but is 2 years are 2 years at Siena enough to have him ready for a major college job? And will you give him the resources? Because clearly that was an issue with Adrian Autry as he tried to get that program back. It remains remarkable to me how irrelevant Syracuse basketball has become. And it wasn't just under Adrian Autry. It was the tail end of Boeheim's tenure as well. And again, Syracuse basketball, like Virginia Tech football, the ACC really needs those two brands to thrive.
Well, I think you saw, I mean, the ACC needed Louisville men's basketball to come back too. And Pat Kelsey's rejuvenated that program. I think McNamara is up for a tall task, but if he can get Syracuse back on track, I mean, that makes the conference even stronger. But Syracuse has lagged. I mean, I don't think anybody's worried about. I know a lot of teams used to go up and lose in the Dome. I don't know that anybody's really been worried about playing Syracuse as of late. Like, it just hasn't, even in the late years of Boeheim. Like, I think the Hokies licked their chops every single time they got to play that 2-3 zone because they just torched it. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm happy for Gio.
Yeah, he's kind of split on it. I actually talked to him for a long time about it on Monday. He's kind of split on it. So
I don't know, McNamara. Does Siena win 10 freaking games if it weren't for McNamara this year, leading them to the tournament? That's the Jim Boeheim defense of McNamara back in the day. Sometimes these programs feel so insular, where they feel like they can't go outside the family, and you see how it catches up to UNC eventually. I think look at Virginia Tech football for a while, where it's like we got to find somebody that's from the family that understands this place. I think new ideas, going outside, finding new coaches, it's not a bad thing sometimes. It does refresh a program, can bring a new perspective. Sometimes it's a disaster, but many coaching hires are disasters.
All right, so back on the floor this weekend, looking at the NCAA tournament. So we are a weekend into the big dance, the Sweet 16 Elite Eight this weekend. Teel, how do you digest what we've seen so far, and how do you view the weekend coming up right now as a whole?
Oh, I mean, I love this time of year. I think the tournament's been great. We don't have a true Cinderella. That's fine. As a proud senior citizen, I look at these regionals, and we could literally have an all AARP Final Four. You could get Izzo or Patino out of the East, Kelvin Sampson out of the South. You could have Rick Barnes come out of the Midwest, and then you could have John Calipari, the baby of the bunch at a mere 67 years old, come out of the West Regional. And all of them except Calipari would surpass Jim Calhoun as the oldest coach to win a natty. Calhoun was 68, I believe, in 10 months when UConn won the 2011 title. So that's pretty cool. And then, closer to home, what we usually talk about, and we often mentioned how good the regular season was for the ACC and how much better it was in non-conference play, and then in doubling its tournament bids from 4 to 8. Guys, it was a grim first weekend of the tournament for the conference. Duke, the only team left standing for the second consecutive season. And barring a Duke National Championship, the ACC will finish with a losing record in this tournament. The only times in the last 4 decades that has happened are 2021, which was a fluke. It was that COVID bubble tournament. And then 1987. That's how far back you have to go for the ACC to have losing records in this event.
Wow. I think, obviously we talked about Carolina. NC State went out in the first 4. I thought Virginia played, Tennessee's pretty good. And you were front and center for that one. I thought Virginia just needed a little bit more in that game. But Miami, I think, had a tough matchup with Purdue, gave the Boilermakers a run for their money for a little bit. Louisville, you just need a little bit more from the league this year outside of Duke.
We get 2 teams about it in the first 4, too. Like SMU and NC State didn't even make it out of Dayton. So there's another side of things. But go ahead, Andy.
Bigger picture with the tournament, I think this will be a good weekend of basketball because, as much as people talk about Cinderella and liking those in the first 2 rounds, as soon as you get to the Sweet 16 and beyond, I just want Cinderella to go home. To cleaning houses here. I don't want you around this tournament. And it's sort of the secret people don't like saying is when all the 1 seeds make the Final Four, those are awesome Final Fours. Those are great games that I look forward to a lot more than San Diego State and Florida Atlantic and those are great stories, those guys getting there, but I don't want them anywhere near the Final Four. Give me the best teams, the premier teams. And yeah, if the Final Four is Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Houston, I won't hate it.
No, I won't either.
I tell you what, tonight's game, Iowa, Nebraska, I hope
there's going to be a brawl. That's going to be like a European soccer style, like hooligans.
I hope they have enough beer in Houston.
Did you see there was that meme out there where the guy, I don't know where it's from. There's the guy out there that's like, hey, look at us. Who'd have thought? Not me.
The Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That was in regard to Iowa and Nebraska playing in the Sweet 16 down in Houston. I mean, that's crazy that Iowa and Nebraska are going to play in the Sweet 16. That's how it goes. That's basketball. It's the NCAA tournament.
Iowa's first Sweet 16 since 1999. Nebraska's first ever. The Cornhuskers were the only Power Four program that had never won an NCAA tournament game before this past week. And then how about that second round? We talked about Mark Byington and Vanderbilt before. How about that Nebraska-Vandy round of third? How did that half court heave, well, beyond half court by Tyler Tanner, how did it not go in?
I thought he shot it too soon. I thought he had more time to get closer. I'm like, why are you
he absolutely
that he had it zeroed in on the thing. I should correct myself. Houston is not a 1 seed. Florida was the 1 seed. Sure. But the top seeds remaining in the Final Four.
No, that game was awesome. Iowa looked good too against Florida.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the other game in Houston tonight, guys. Holy cow! Houston, Illinois. Kingston Flemings against Keaton Wagler. Oh, sign me up all day for that. Then you've got, obviously St. John's against Duke, Rick Pitino against Duke in the NCAA tournament. What could possibly happen? When was the last time we saw that? It's only happened once, and my goodness, it was an epic. Michigan, Alabama. Michigan's number 2 in the country in defensive efficiency. Alabama's the highest scoring team in the country, coming off a game that made 19 threes in the second round. There are just outstanding games galore. And also, we were talking about Tommy Lloyd in Arizona. I think they're top 3 defensively in the country. And who do they face? Only perhaps the greatest freshman scorer in tournament history in Darius Acuff Jr. at Arkansas. He's the first freshman ever to score 60 points in his first 2 tournament games.
That East region, the coaches are incredible. I mean, Pitino, Izzo, Hurley, and then Shire, the new guy, who also happens to have the 1 seed with Duke. I mean, that's just fascinating X's and O's and the chess battle there.
I saw a tweet talking about the Michigan Alabama game. It says Michigan Alabama has a ceiling of a game of the year and a floor of Dusty May needs to be put in jail for what his team is going to do to Alabama.
He'd be the second Michigan coach put in jail this year.
Okay. I look at some of these matchups and it's funny. Like the Texas Purdue matchup is kind of the sneaky one, but Texas has been terrific. Like Texas dominated Gonzaga, and Purdue. I mean, Miami's really good, I think, and just got a tough seeding. But I mean, Purdue looked a little shaky at times against Miami. So I think you're going to get some really, really good games.
Little old here. Texas. A little engine that could.
Trust me, the people in Austin were there were people in Austin that I ran into, because they played in the first 4 and then they advanced and they won 2 games. And people in Austin were like, our team was not that great this year. How in the world are we going to the Sweet 16? I'm like, that's March, man.
Yeah. Here's a great note from my friend Matt Norlander at CBS. This is the first Sweet 16 since 1954 where we do not have UCLA, Kentucky, North Carolina, or Kansas.
I do like that, though.
That spices it up.
Definitely spices it up.
All right, Teel, were you surprised at all by Virginia's early exit?
No, just simply because I mean, I picked them to go to the Sweet 16 and lose to Iowa State in my bracket. But Tennessee, as you mentioned, David, is really good and really out Virginia. I mean, they're long, they're athletic in the front court, they're physical, they really guard you. And this is Rick Barnes' 30th NCAA tournament. And oh, by the way, this is Tennessee's 4th consecutive Sweet 16. And those are hard to come by. Ask Bill Self. Bill Self hasn't been back to the Sweet 16 since winning the Natty in 2022. It's hard to just survive the first weekend of the tournament, and Barnes does it consistently. Not as consistently as Kelvin Sampson. This is Houston's 7th consecutive Sweet 16.
And Houston gets to play in Houston.
In Houston, yeah, 100%. Teel, as always, appreciate your time. Banger podcast going through. We're fixing college basketball as we speak. So very curious to see how the next couple weeks play out. We got the Sweet 16 Elite 8 this weekend. Next week, we got the Final Four. Virginia Tech spring football continues to roll on. So appreciate your time and look forward to chatting again here very soon.
Oh, great conversation. Enjoyed it, guys.
For the Virginia Sports Hall of Famer David Teel, David Cunningham, Andy Bitter, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill saying so long from episode 28 of Talking with Teel, presented by State Farm. Have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you very soon.